Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Art as Well, your weekly source of inspiration, connection, and enlightenment brought to you live from the workspaces of people from all aspects of the arts. This is episode 36, and before we meet today's guest, I have a selection of 4 works drawn from the well, completed recently, from some of our viewers. Now, before I bring up the works themselves, I just want to give a shout out to Tim Goulding, whose exhibition is starting in the Lavit Gallery. That's L-A-V-I-T, the lavitgallery.com, and you'll see a selection of his work. Tim was a recent guest on The Art as Well, and I'd like to congratulate him on this new exhibition, which is entitled Rehearsal, and is part of a larger series of work called Music. So here we go with our first. So the first work we have is by Rupert Warren, who's a freelance photographer living in Germany. And the title is Fire Gazing, which is part of an ongoing interactive Instagram series of sandscapes taken during lockdown this year. He began by exploring aspects of sand as a building material and a fun wordplay like sand and witch, but it has developed into an ongoing story based on a sandy desert. Here he imagines looking into a fire, everyone seeing something different. Using sand alone to create an image, he photographs it, erases it, and starts again. Here are 3 or 4 images, color cast created in workshop afterwards, and they're then sandwiched together to create the final image. Right, the next image is by Yvonne Molony O'Caoimh, and it is entitled Darkness Falls, Casting Shadows, and it's oil on canvas. Yvonne says, "I've been chasing shadows and reflections forever, it seems. But I came back to this theme recently again, thinking about the darkness and shadows cast under lockdown. I'm exploring how light and shadow are so inextricably linked. They are opposite spectrums of the same sphere and brought into sharp perspective in all our lives at the present time specifically." This particular piece was inspired by my nightly ritual of emerging from the bathroom, sliding doors, where the light casts wonderful shadows across the bedroom, and pick up some interesting patterns on the rug. The next is by Kathrine Geoghegan and was started in December 2020 in Rialaig and was completed recently in her studio in Kildare. From her new project, Exploring Bogs and Fens, this is Winter Fen, Rialaig. While in Kerry, Kathrine had the opportunity to explore winter fens in all their dormant skeletal beauty. She also wrote a haiku, which is a Japanese poem of only 3 lines for each work she completed. And this one is as follows: "The skeletal forms of dormant fenland rushes, lit by winter sun." And finally, some stunning and intricate work by ceramicist Jane German. Jane says, "Here is a shot of a recent group of my ceramics entitled Biomorphic Forms. At the moment, I am inspired by the work of Haeckel, the German 19th century polymath. His book, Art Forms in Nature, is a constant source of inspiration, which challenges me to find new ways of interpreting them in clay." So now on to today's guest. David Newton was born in Rhode Island in 1962 and graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design in 1984. He then moved to New York City, where he held art exhibitions, taught art, and edited books. David and his family moved to Bellewstown, County Meath in 2002. David and his wife Linda have 4 children, Cormac, Ailish, Annie, and Milo, and all are studying in Irish universities. In his art studio and workshop, he continues to create many artworks and objects, originating in collage materials and often featuring everyday life themes. So we'll go straight over to David.
So 9-to-5ers, everyday folk who don't make art, kind of see what artists do as mysterious, and that you're doing this and creating a document about how artists think about their art, what materials they use, how they set up their studios. I think it's a very important thing you're doing, Alan. So I'm grateful, and I feel it's a privilege to be here today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I think, the circumstances, it's very strange, isn't it, when circumstances change so much and opportunities come out of them? Because I think, talking to a lot of artists, A, you wouldn't get near them, and B, you wouldn't fit as many people as we have into their studios anyway in the first place.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
you know, it's great we have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, you know, and I should just say I have my son Cormac here with me in case anything happens, you know, I'll let him deal with the panic of whatever's going on with tech, you know.
Like the last time we spoke.
So I know, hopefully nothing will happen.
Hopefully not.
So,
Very good.
Again, thank you.
Yeah, not at all. So listen, you were born in Rhode Island. Tell me a little bit about that. And what
Rhode Island is very much, it looks very much like Skerries, where I grew up. It's the Narragansett Bay. Yeah. And, you know, I come from kind of an old New England family. The name Newton goes back to 1690. A chap named Matthew arrived in Stonington, Connecticut in 1690. So, and I seem to be the direct son of a direct son all the way back to 1690. So the Newtons have lived there for quite a while, you know, and it's you know, it has that seaside Irish Sea quality that if you walked along the coast of Skerries, very much like that.
Yeah. And when did your interest in art evolve?
Well, my mother is an artist, and her great grandfather was Bert Poole, who's an American painter who. She loves art. Her sister had books on Munch, which I thought was Munch until somebody corrected me. You know, who would have thought that Munch was Munch, but Munch was Munch, you know?
You're not
alone. Anyway, I looked at books. I was brought places, and my mother and family were very supportive. My father was very good with his hands, had a workshop downstairs, and yeah. So my interest in art probably goes way back. One of my earliest memories is walking in a garden and really enjoying looking at the flowers, you know. So loving the color, you know. Okay. So.
And at what point did you move to New York?
Well, I went to the Rhode Island School of Design. I went to work for a sculptor about 30 miles north of there. And I was skint. I had no money. And a mate came and said, "You're going to die here, Dave." And I'm like, "I know, help me. I don't want to go back home. So what are we going to do?" So we moved to New York City together in 1984, and we shared the same €100 back and forth, or dollars, I should say. And so I moved to New York City. And to be honest, I recognize now that was a very brave move. But it was just what happens. You know, I didn't really have a plan, you know. I love the city. And what had happened is I had been brought to the city by my auntie from Rhode Island when I was about 15. And we went to the Metropolitan Museum. We got on a bus at 6 a.m. We got back at 10 at night. We went to the Metropolitan and we saw Rodin's Gates, and we saw Goya's Prince, and we saw some Degas, we saw some Helen Frankenthaler and others, you know. And I went back to my Kansas after being in Oz, and I'm like, I want to live in Oz. So I moved eventually when I was just 20 to New York City.
Yes. And you went to the art school, where was that again?
It's called the Rhode Island School of Design. It was set up by women to work with issues surrounding design and a lot of fabric and a lot of other things that were going on. And eventually it's become one of the renowned art schools in the world, you know, now, you know.
And you mentioned to me during the week about a woman who was involved in that museum who had quite an influence on you. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Oh, yeah. When I got to New York City, I didn't know really what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to like make greeting cards. And I knew I kind of just wanted to set up a studio. And so I made a loft bed and I worked underneath it and I started my practice. My mate who found me and took me to New York City, we ended up having a 2-person show. And as by having a 2-person show, that seemed to have been in New York City, seemed to have been a cool thing to have had done, because working in the restaurant, a woman came up to me and asked me what I did. I showed her that I had made a little bit of furniture in college. She asked me to draw up a chair. She wanted to have me make her daughter a chair. So I made her a chair. The woman came in, liked the chair, and she said, "I have this woman who is setting up an organization called Studio in a School." And Studio in a School is now a very, you know, I think there are probably over 50 or 60 artists working for them now. But I was one of the first artists hired by Tom Cahill and And this woman, her name is Agnes Gundon. Last year, she just won the J.P. Getty Award for service to the arts and humanities in America. You know, for setting up studio and school, and also being like the president of the Museum of Modern Art and everything like that. And she was a major collector. And I brought my daughter to New York City in 2017 with Linda, and her collection was on at MoMA, or the Museum of Modern Art. So she basically was very influential. I ended up getting a job. You know, I didn't have to wait.
In the museum itself, was it? Not
in the museum. The idea of studio in a school was an artist would go into a school and set up a studio and show children how the artistic process works.
Yes.
So technically what I'm doing today is very much like what I was doing in 1984, 85.
Yes. Okay. All right. Should we go and start looking at some of your work? Because you've got a very diverse portfolio.
Yeah, I think if it's okay, though, I just wanted to just tell the quickest snippet of just, I mean, the story for me, in terms of why I'm here. I would have loved geology and anthropology and psychology and every other ology.
Yeah.
But why am I doing this? You know, and you probably wonder, like, you know, what's the deal? Why this rather than something else?
And all artists
ask that question, you know? So imagine the boy by the sea who loves to draw. That's me.
Yeah.
Imagine that I don't want to get money from my parents. I like to shovel driveways, I'll mow lawns, I'll walk dogs, I'll do whatever. I just want to just lay low and just do what I do, right? Yeah. I'm babysitting. I do a drawing so Jimmy will go to bed. Jimmy draws a banana, I draw a banana, we put it up on the refrigerator. The parents called me the next day and said, Dave, I'm like, well, what's going on? What happened? And they're like, we love your drawing of the banana and the orange. You know, I'm like, oh, okay. They're like, we would like you to draw our boat. And then I ended up getting a few commissions from other wealthy families that lived in Warwick Neck, where I grew up. Yeah. And just to say, it was easier than, you know, shoveling driveways. So essentially I went, oh, wow, that's amazing. But when I went to the museum with my auntie, I realized that art isn't as straightforward as that. You know, it's not going to work that way. When you look at Gates of Hell, or you look at a Goya dream with an owl or bats, it's about something about humans and conditions and within us, despair and joy and whatever. So I guess I just want to say that the outcome of all that is that I decided that I would try to be a bit more innovative than, you know, rather than being purely about depiction. I'm interested in materials and play. So my feelings are, they run a gamut from joy to despair, but I'm generally miserable, as Marilyn Monroe would say. You know, but when she was quoted saying that she was generally miserable, but when she made a film and she was honest and she really got at what womanhood meant, then she was happy. So I'm generally miserable like Marilyn Monroe, but happy when I get it right in here. I love my family. I have a lot of joy in my family. Everybody's wonderful. But at the same time, I'm carrying some of that question of the human condition with me. Of course. What that means.
Yeah.
So can we do the studio? Do you want to do the studio?
Well, let me ask you first.
We'll do the slides. We'll do the slides, yeah.
We'll do the slides first.
And then everybody, there's going to be a long studio walkabout, so sit tight, yeah?
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Just tell me before we do that, why you ended up coming to Ireland.
Yes.
How come?
We owned an apartment on West 53rd Street. We had 2 children, Cormac and Ailish. We decided to go for a 3rd child. We had a 2-bedroom apartment, and we got twins, Annie and Milo. And just to say, it's been wonderful. It's remarkable, but you know, it was shocking that when we looked at the sonogram and saw 2 heartbeats on it, you know.
Yes.
But we're happy, believe us, you know, but at the same time, we had to up stakes. We could have moved to the suburbs, but Linda was from Bellewstown, and her parents, lovely folk, gave us an acre, and we built a house and a studio. I built a studio on that acre.
Well, I have to tell you, I went through a very similar experience where my wife, Trina, went into the maternity hospital, and this Australian doctor was doing the scanning, you know, And he said, "Are there twins in your family?"
Oh,
And Trina said, "No." And I said, "Well, yeah, my mother is a twin." And he
right.
said, "Well," he said in a lovely Australian accent, he said, "Well, look, there's one." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "And there's the other." And the two of us kind of nearly collapsed. And then the next thing,
Yeah.
the next thing I said to him, I said, "Are there any more?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know, mate." He said, "Sometimes the little buggers hide behind each other."
Oh, no. Yeah. So, I mean, I just said to Linda we'd had sonograms before, of course, and I found one dot.
Yeah.
But when she said, "Look again," and I found the second dot, I'm like, I'm really happy. That's fantastic. Where are we going to put all these children? How are we going to get them all?
Well, exactly.
Are we going to lose one on the subway?
Okay, let's get on to the slides.
So we'll do the slides. And how are we doing for time?
We're doing okay.
Okay, I'll try to move it quickly. We're going to just,
Yeah, we'll all right.
I'm just going to have a good pace. Yeah.
Okay.
So here's a piece that's based on phrases that I had found as I came over the first year and a half. I kept a little notebook in my back pocket. Mm-hmm. I wrote down 700 things that I hadn't quite heard perfectly when I was just a visitor here. "Tell them nothing" is a remarkable expression. I've used found styrofoam and found magnetic letters, and I've embedded them into the styrofoam. But in this case, "tell them nothing." Matisse said that artists should just keep their mouths quiet. It's a visual medium. You shouldn't talk. So I'm going against Matisse right now and talking about this stuff, but "tell them nothing" in America, what we say is, if we want your opinion, we'll squeeze your head, but here, "tell them nothing" is the best that you guys have because you're very gentle folk, So, Matisse made the mistake of talking about what art should be in front of Picasso, in front of a group. And he was really angry because Matisse was talking about rhythms and color and everything like that. So Matisse went home and made a very jagged painting without much color. Brock called it tallow colored, like wax colored. And it ended up being the brothel in Barcelona on Avignon Street, as you might better pronounce than I can in French. I won't pronounce it. I'll embarrass myself. But he ended up making a masterpiece because Matisse opened his mouth. And that, so maybe it would be good for me not to say anything, but I'm going to proceed. So let's continue.
Okay, very good. Oh, sorry, jumped.
No worries, yeah. So in my studio currently, I'm working on a series of everyday life with collage scraps. So the one on the left, cinema, relates to a feeling that's not necessarily joyful. It's probably this question of selfishness. The guy isn't sharing the popcorn, and perhaps not to the woman's delight. And the other one, it seems that the men seem to be looking at the woman jumping, but the woman seems to be looking toward the men, wondering if they're looking. So there's a sort of a dynamic in this raft. And I've been doing this type of painting about rafts since at least the mid-90s. I revisit themes often. This has ink atop glued collage scraps on top of Fabriano paper, 100 by 70 centimeters. Okay. So if we can continue. Here's an early drawing. I took a class with Jared Fraccaretta. He was my art teacher, went to the Rhode Island School of Design. This is in Wickford, Rhode Island. This is the type of way I drew the boat and the houses that I was asked to draw. So this is when I was 16. I just loved drawing. I just loved it. So, and I just haven't stopped. I suppose an artist is an artist because they make art, and if you're an artist, if you make something, painters paint and painters paint, so, and I keep going. Yeah. Here's something that's made over 40 years ago. Yeah. Next slide. When I got to college, there were a lot of innovative professors. We had one who asked us to use garbage to make self-portraits. And in a certain way, I took that to hand. I went down and found some laundry detergent, and I found some dirt and some rubber cement. And I made this self-portrait out of just rubber cement, laundry detergent, and dirt. So that's what I look like at 18. I think I'm probably haven't changed much. Sorry, folks. All right. So next slide.
Yeah, certain resemblance. All right. Oh, that's more like you.
So this is what I had when I had hair. So this is a mate of mine, Howie, who might be here today. He asked me to come up and do a painting on his wall. But having had the epiphany about art being hard and about something, it doesn't have to be depictional. It can be about ideas. I decided to take the paintbrushes that he offered and the spackle, and I stuck the brushes into the ceiling, and I made stalactites, which I've only admitted to him recently is because I thought he and his roommate were animals and that they were like cavemen. And this guy, Howie, had actually gone around camp dressed as Bam Bam from the Flintstones with a fur on. So I was referencing that he was a bit of a caveman. I've only told him recently why I did that. Next slide. Now, in college, I was asked to make a chair. So there's a Gibran poem that basically says, that which slays you, I too am slain. So this idea is, if I'm going to make a chair, how was I slain by a chair? That chair on the left is the chair I had as a child. It's broken since Milo, who's very good with his hands, like his grandfather is, helped me fix the leg. We used a rail from home base to fix the right leg, as you can see there. So that's the chair I sat with in it as a child. It's very, as you'd say, douchey, very small. But what's interesting about the chair is I always imagined that the arms would grow out in almost like fern spindles, and the knobs at the top spun. So what I did is I extrapolated out my memory. This is a memory chair. So I made the back rungs, the back legs grow. And in the other way, I took the spinning forms and made these potatoes, one of which comes off and you can hide stuff in it, because I always wanted to hide stuff in the knobs so nobody would find my gum or whatever, I mean, kids want to hide stuff. Of course they do. And so I made a chair that's sort of evoking the feelings about what it is to be in a chair rather than what the chair actually is. So next slide. So you hollowed out this area here. Yeah, that's hollowed out. And if this canoe shape comes out, and you can keep your dice and your poker chips in there if you want, And the bits up at the back here, they've grown. Yeah, they're based on sort of a violin idea. So they're spirals. They're very much like what you'd see with the turning in of a fern. And I had used a violin as a reference because I often imagine this as a musical. The back rails reminded me of musical instruments. So I wanted it to make music as well. It's just what I remembered. I wasn't that far away from childhood. I was 18 or 19 doing this chair. Okay. So next slide. Yeah. So at the Rhode Island School of Design, there was a chap well-known, taught there for 40 years. His name is Richard Merkin. If you look at the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, he's the chap with the hat on the far right at the top. So he did pastels a lot. And in this particular page in my sketchbook, the left and the right-hand side of the open sketchbook, he was talking and he said that an artist is someone who looks at a supposed absurdity and finds value in it. That's who he's an artist. And so he was always saying to people, you should have your own strong, independent voice. And he told me this day in the turn of 82, 83, that I should think about collage. And I did. So 300 sketchbooks later, jammed with collage, I'm grateful to Richard Merkin. And if I go to America, I'd like to seek out his gravesite and go visit him because he passed in 2009. Next slide. So my sketchbooks, starting, in a certain spot on the bottom, December of 16 to February of 2021. So that's what I've done with my sketchbooks. I don't want to burden my family with this. I'd like to find an archive that will take them all. Samuel Pepys endowed a library and locked his diaries into it. And 5 generations later, people found them and realized that it had the story of the 1650s. I'd like some archive to take these away and open them up in 100 years. So I don't want this to be burdened on my family. I've got 300 sketchbooks. 300. Wow. Right. And this explains the idea of it. If you glue stuff on the left-hand side that are suggestive, the word is pareidolia. If you look in the sky and you see sort of something protruding out of a cloud, you might think that looks like a rabbit ear. Yeah. Or if it's the other way, you might think it's a unicorn or a beaver's tail. That idea of pareidolia thinking is integral. I'm an associative artist. I'm not, I do depict, but I don't use models. So in this case, if you look here, I've taken the shape and I've turned it into a woman stretching, and it suggested some guy. The blue shape suggested a guy's butt who's in bed. And then I drew it. So that's what's in my sketchbooks, 100 drawings a month, 100 collages a month. Next slide. So then I take those sketchbooks and I do these little thumbnail sketches with the idea that 1 out of 10 in the sketchbook will be interesting. Not every single one will be great. There was a chap at college at the Rhode Island School of Design who had us draw 10 quick gesture drawings, and then he asked us to hang them up. And then he showed us 10 drawings by Picasso and 10 drawings by Rembrandt, and then told us to point or raise their hand when you see the one that you like the most. Most people liked the Picasso drawing of the woman holding a baby as a circus performer and liked Saskia walking through the river. And we asked, why do we all agree that all these 10? He said, art is about human yearning. You might yearn for a family. You like the circus one. You might yearn to be risk-taking. That's why you like Saskia walking in the water, pulling up her dress. You know, it's not her knee, and her knees are knocking around, you know. Mm-hmm. So art, I learned at college, is kind of about what we yearn for. Again, back to Gibran, that which slays me, that's which slays you, I too am slain. So if it affects me, it affects you. And a number of people, when they collect my work, they say, how do you know my life? And I find that to be the biggest compliment. Next slide. So here's the thumbnail sketch on the left. I didn't even finish the underpart of her phone holding arm. It's just a very quick 15-second sketch. And that led to an ink drawing on paper of a woman in bed. I mean, somewhat Matissean, as you'd agree, I suppose, but she is on a phone. Surely this was not done in the 1800s or the 1900s, you know, yes. Or the, you know, at least to the late 1900s anyway. All right, next slide. And I then make them into collages. So this one was in the Fringe Festival in Westport, and it's just come down. The show has just come down. It was up longer than I expected due to COVID and the dealer liking the work. So next slide. Now, this is very important, folks. And if you're here today, Beatrice, you referenced Anna Mendieta. I worked on a project a year before she passed. It's called Furrows, and it was at the Rhode Island School of Design. I was working as a curator's assistant in the museum, and the guy that was trying to help her from the sculpture department didn't know what she wanted. She needed somebody to lay the grass on top of the mounds that she had created. Basically create puzzle pieces of grass that looked like they were always there. So I went out and met Anna, who's now a renowned. She's had 40 shows since her death, her tragic death in 1985. So I helped her, but she had already done the mounds. She just wanted the grass to go on. So for a number of days, or perhaps the guts of a few afternoons, or possibly over maybe 3 or 4 afternoons, I made sure that it looked like what she wanted. And while she stood with me, while I was, putting the grass over, she talked to me and asked me a question. She said, what did you learn here? You're a senior at the Rhode Island School of Design. This was a 1984 piece of a silhouette series about silhouettes of women and vaginas, and very powerful work, Anyway, so she basically, when I said to her that the big thing I learned at RISD was the authenticity of materials, and she says, well, that's bold. I'm like, what do you mean? An artist invests their emotions into the materials. I can take sand and dirt or sticks, and I can make it into art. It doesn't matter the materials, it matters your feeling. And I felt like my brain just went, and something changed in my brain. Next slide. So as part of my practice, I have about 9 strands of things I do on a regular basis between the drawings, the collages, and a number of other things you'll see when you do the studio tour. One of the things I do, and I've been carving canoes since I've been a child. When I first got my first jackknife, I've always been taking a stick and trying to carve out a hollow it's the easiest thing to carve with a jackknife. If you have a jackknife, it's the first thing you do. I've found a natural deposit of clay near here. I've been firing them in a washing machine, drum, and using natural materials to burn, to get it really hot. And these were out all winter, and they stayed ceramic, So I've used natural materials, and this is my nod to my Anna. Next slide. So I currently have a show up. If you are intrigued by my work, I would encourage you to go to Kells. The creative director, Mark Smith of Type Trail, a wonderful festival that gives you a storefront, and you could do a creative thing in it. This year's word is identity. Then you can talk to Mark Smith of Type Trail. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. He's setting up a museum to typography in Kells because the Book of Kells originated there, and the letters are so huge in the Book of Kells. This particular piece has 4 ink drawings, and it's all about being in your pod or in your bubble. So you'd be on the, using a TV clicker, or as you say here, remote. I'm not going to say remote. I'm going to keep saying clicker because I'm not going to change. I'm just not. You wouldn't go to America and start saying clicker, folks. So then, then don't expect.
A clicker is a thing cabin crew use to count passengers.
Oh, okay.
There's another use here. But tell me about this. Was this a shop that was just closed?
This is a shop that's famous in Kells. It was the former ice cream shop. So if you are looking for this, if you go to Kells and you want to know where it is, just say, where's Sean's old ice cream shop? And everybody will point you to this. So I took it over, and it was supposed to come down in 2 months, but it's going to be up for probably a year now. Because it's considered apt for the pandemic. And it's an art show you can see. So it's a fake travel agency. It's an installation a la Anna. And it's a Staycations by David Newton in 4 ink drawings, people on a beach, people drawing at a table, people having coffee in bed, and people with a TV clicker. Next slide.
I love it. I think it's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. So in one of them, this is very upsetting to me. I had done an ink collage of people in bed having coffee. And I would suppose this was kind of a married couple. If you look at the one on the right, there's not a lot of engagement necessarily between the two. They're just, maybe it was kind of about a love, but I learned whilst I was working on this big 100 by 70 ink collage that the woman that was part of this drawing that I'd done in 1981, she died. And I realized that the artwork had to move the people closer. And this was going to be about young love that I had witnessed. So Coffee in Bed is about young love. And it was a huge responsibility I felt as an artist to try to get at what young love meant. Next slide. Here's the drawing. It's very faint. I didn't do any Photoshop or anything. This is a 1981 drawing. I asked my college roommate if it was okay that once I saw him getting coffee, could I come in and draw them for 20 minutes? So I drew them snuggling in bed, and that is Allegra and Richard. And Allegra passed last year, and I was very sad to hear. She was a lovely, warm person. Next slide. Okay, Picasso. I know this might seem a bit of a jump, but everything I'm doing with ink and drawing and everything like this has to do with this. This isn't per se a collage, but it's kind of what I'm very interested in. He took a label that says Louvre on it. It's a 1908 work. And he painted over the label on the box, and he drew a boat on top of it. So these women, these naiads, he was associating, well, whatever happened on the label with a boat. And this would be a work that I would love in my collection. Next slide. Mm-hmm. This is Anna's, and it belongs to Agnes Gund. Agnes Gund, my former boss, owns this. Yes. It's a very long piece. It's human sized. You can see it has, a female form, suggestion of a vagina. This is a silhouette series. This is a 1984 piece. This was done within a year of her death under unfortunate and terrible circumstances, which if you want to look it up, I'd strongly advise you to learn about Anna Mendieta. If you did, I'd be really happy. The book that I showed on the slides. If you looked at the video again, you should buy that book. Next slide.
Okay, is that done in clay or?
It's wood with a sand glued. Yeah. So, but there she is. She said I can take sand and make art from it, and she does.
Yeah.
She is in me. She's my hero. Yeah. So this is my studio. Everyone, I just want you to know I got a leader grant, 40,000 euro to build this. I'm not saying this with pride. I'm just saying, artists, apply to your leader grants if you have space out back. If you're in a rural setting, you can say that it's a job. And I do work in there, and I have a practice. I don't necessarily work as a diurnal artist during the day or like nocturnally. I am what you call crepuscular, like a cow or a deer. I go in at 3 to like 8, and I might go out when dusk is coming from 6 to 10. My practice is crepuscular, and don't call me a cow though, you'll hurt my feelings. Next slide.
Oh dear.
This was a survey show done by David O'Shea in Chimera Gallery in Mullingar. He gave me a huge part of the gallery, and I just showed my practice. And he was a very kind man to allow me to just take over, you know. So there would have been any number of my Aladdin's Cave studio practice within that show called Collage Collisions in 2019. So I suppose we should keep moving. Should we do the studio visit, do you think?
Yep, why not? Why not?
Okay. So again, I'm glad you guys are staying. Please don't go anywhere, because this is the key to the whole thing. All right. So
don't worry, David, the numbers are increasing.
Oh, great. Okay. Because I will find you if you leave. I will come and find Liam Neeson and I are coming. You know, stay. So I will find you. Right. So here's the thing, right? Let me just take a little drink. This is a 40 by 20 size building. Half of it's devoted to the studio with high ceilings, and the other side is a workshop that has storage above, which is I'm not bringing you up there because it's crazy. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do the studio and we're going to do the workshop as quick as we can. How much time do we have, Alan?
We have about 15, 20 minutes.
Great. Okay, so stay, everybody. Here we go. Okay, behind me, and I'm going to turn this around somehow. Okay, let me see how I do this. So Cormac, can you help me flip this around? I can't seem to find the flip thing. How do I get it?
You're on iPhone, aren't you?
Here, I found it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just flipped it around. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, great. Okay, so here we go, folks. We're going around my studio. First of all,
go nice
I've got
and
a
slowly.
north-facing view, and it's in the farmlands of County Meath. Some of the richest farmland ever because of glacial till being left here. You know, so I have a 3-windowed kind of north-facing space. Okay, mm-hmm. So in it, it's quite high. You know, and you know, I have a lot of space. It goes up to, I think, 16 feet. So if you look here, I've hung up a series of ink drawings, or I guess technically for the artists here to make it is ink brush painting technically, all right? So they're done with squirrel hair brushes. I've got 5. They cost me 150 at Evans's. Squirrel hair can go on forever. You could draw a line with ink down the block, down the farm lane, down the boreen with a squirrel hair brush. If you're looking to make a good long fat line or thin line, get a squirrel hair brush from Evans Exchange. So this ink drawing here is called CPR. I heard my sister and her husband's, my brother-in-law, got COVID. So I went back into my inventory to figure out my human condition question. I did this drawing recently about my fear for my sister. Will everybody be okay? This boy is getting CPR. So, and some people would say that this signature is narcissistic. If you feel that way, fair play, go ahead. But really, it's an element. I've sent out about 1,000 postcards, and I treat the signature as an element. So it's something that balances. Often when I'm doing the work, it's the first thing that's on the paper, and then I work around the signature. So, okay, which is unusual. Usually it's the last thing that goes on, and you have to do it in the right-hand corner, blah, blah. You know, but so here's one that I'm thinking about working on, but in a vertical format. It's called Race. and another that's called Slippers, and another that's called Raft. So these are some that one of my children helped me select as ones that might be good for you guys to see. Here's one that's definitely related to my feelings about the pandemic. A woman is alone at a table asleep after obviously something happened, but she's dreaming, she's away. So this is my pandemic feeling. Now Matisse is telling me to shut up, so I'm probably gonna say very little more. You know, here's one called Kiss. And what happened when I drew this one, I found a 1988 drawing. And I'm like, crikey, I like this drawing. And it was about a man being kind of the aggressor. And I loved it in a way that I'm like, gosh, that's not far from what I love to doing today. So look at that, 1988. So I decided to look at it again, but I often look to poetry to help me. So I found a poem called Strawberries. And it's a lovely poem, you know, by Edwin Morgan, you know, and basically it's about, you know, they're facing each other, your knees held in mine, blue plates on our laps, they're eating strawberries and they're not hurrying. And it's a beautiful poem. Look it up, Strawberries. So as I'm working on this, I tried to make it that there was a mutuality about it. They were both not aggressive with each other. They're being tender, like people with their knees knocking, eating strawberries together. So that's what I tried to do.
And David, do you make prints of these? Because I noticed that you've pinned them to the wall.
Yeah.
Which looks as if really you're not going to do anything with them. But I mean,
no,
can I ask you the elephant in the room? Do you sell these?
Well, I mean, they will be for sale. This is
and
a new
what format.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, they look great in a frame. Here's one in a frame. I'll show you how it looks in a frame.
Yeah.
So I mean, for houses that are probably more modern, this could take up a good wall. You know, I would say that this is for the more modern buildings, this isn't a bungalow piece, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, something smaller, I do make them 60 by 40 as well. This is 100 by 70, again, on Fabriano paper. Margot Banks recommended it. She works on Fabriano paper, 100 by 70. It's the 50% cotton stuff, you know, it's really beautiful, really gorgeous paper. So here's one that we all know, like you can look at this and say, I would bet you would understand this, but it's only true to today. You're on the phone, you learn something, but your lover's on the phone and they don't want to listen because they're busy with their phone. So whilst it could well be early modernism, the phones deny that. But it's true to the human condition that, you know, the fallacy of perfect communication, you know, are you really going to get somebody's attention when they're fully absorbed in a screen? You know it. I mean, you know, everybody, that's not going to happen.
Yes, yes.
In this new life, this is one I really want to do. It's called Cold Swim up there. Cold Swim is what is the rage. Everybody wants to go swimming in the cold. Wim Hof has got some explaining to do. You know, this guy. All right. So here's one that I did based on Asleep at the Picnic Table. This took a month and a half. It's got probably 300 scraps of paper on it, you know, including a Pompeian piece of fruit, of course, Manet's, you know, don't make me say French, say it in French, but you probably know the name of the piece, the woman. Yeah. So I used lots of scraps of paper in my associative pareidolia way. And it's sort of about light casting across, almost as if it's a dream. So what she's dreaming about, and I even put what is that called, Cormac, when you put that light like that? What is that called? Oh, it's a lens flare. Cormac had the right word for it. You know, so that I put a rainbow lens into it to suggest that was the light, you know. So speaking of light, this is early morning light. So imagine you start with a piece of collage and you're trying to get at the right light. Color is light. If I asked Cormac to turn off the lights, the wall would still be a wall, but it would be a different color based on the light condition. In fact, Cormac, can you turn the lights off? Is that all right? So watch this. Watch how the light changes with the light off. And the color is going to change, right? So can you put it back on? Same room, different color. So if you choose the right color, whether it's collage or not, it ends up being able to depict the space when you step back in a Seurat sort of way. You know how the dots come together. Yeah. When you get close, it's really just a scrap of paper about money. But when you step back, associatively, it works in space. So, and color is light. Yeah. So I've done a whole bunch of these ink collages, I call them. You know, so there's a bunch of them here. But I think it might be good if I just go back to the very beginning. I heard in some film it's a very good place to start, Alan, you know?
That's right, yes. Yeah, you got it.
So, all right, but here's the beginning, right? So I glue some scraps, and I have 7 on the go right now. I have 7 sketchbooks that don't have a month. I just take scraps and I glue them in. So basically at the end of a month, I'll have 100 collages that are signed. So I do at least 200 artworks a month just by my practice. So if you look, okay, so if you look here, I've done a collage. I responded to the pareidolia idea that it could be a unicorn, or it could be a beaver, or it could be a rabbit, right? Yep. In this instance, it's a man with his phone talking to his wife about something that's on the phone. Here, Superman and some pillows that are sort of like pointed up. Those became you know, knees on a woman reading, and the Superman became, you know, sort of flying down into a man reading. So I've explored that idea here. If you could move that there, Cormac, is that all right? Can you take this? Yeah. So if you look here, I explored that idea of reading in bed. You know, and here's the woman reading. I did an ink drawing. So I just do a lot of scraps of things. Somebody might want that and put that into a frame. I don't know. So then what ends up happening is I played with the idea as color is light. Behind him, behind the phone, it might be greener. You know, where the phone is being projected onto, the light would be bluer. And she's reading her book. So this is the cusp between digital and print. So somebody has to depict it, and I tried to. We're at a cuspy time. It's the, you know, horse and carriages and cars are on the same street in the media right now. Yeah. So somebody has to depict this juncture. And here it is. I'm trying. I dare all the artists out there to think about that. What is the way to depict this juncture that we're at? It's moving from digital, moving to digital from our beloved print. And you can probably see I am very much interested in print. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, okay. So if you look here, on the previous page, there's a woman coming out of the tub that I had done. And so I ended up, let's see, Cormac, there was an ink pen here, Cormac, can you, okay, it's missing. So, oh, here it is, I've got it, yeah. So I'm going to look at this drawing here of the man on the phone, and I'm going to come over here to this page of reflective thumbnails. So I've got a library of human activity from joy to despair. I've done nearly 3,000 little thumbnail sketches as preparatory work to do things like you saw, text and other things. So I need to find a vertical one that I've drawn here. So I'm going to find one that makes sense. I could draw it anywhere on this page. So I'm going to go here. All right. So very quickly, and I don't have to finish it, but that's the phone. That's the phone. So I'm drawing the phone, and I'm going to draw his thumb. And I can come back to this later. So there's his thumb. Thumb and the phone. I might do a little suggestions of apps. And I think I'm going to do the fingers. And then I'll come back to this another time. So I can keep coming back to things. So here's the phone in a chap's hand. I'm just going to put the bottom of the phone. So I love to draw. I'm not saying it's great, but it's been my joy. I'm going to be drawing to my dying day. All right. So now I'm going to put down this pen and move around. Okay. So here we go. Come with me, folks.
Let's go nice and slowly, David. Go nice and slowly.
Oh, yeah, I meant to go slow and steady. Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah.
All right. So if you come over here, I can prove to you I've done 300 sketchbooks.
Jeez, so you have. Yeah.
Keeps going, folks. And then over here, there was a wall of shows I had in New York City in here. and a painting that I'll never sell right there. And I'll talk about that if we have time. I did, before I started using the black bound, I had a lot of these ring binder things, but I found them really annoying. You know, I don't like ring binders for drawing because they get bent.
Yeah, so but your black ones below there, where the months are they not ring bound?
No, these black ones are the ones you just can get in Art and Hobby. And they're wonderful. You know, they're just... What
sort of spine have they got?
They're just like the hardbound black book.
All right, okay, yeah.
But A4 sized, Alan. A5, that's a brilliant size. And that fits really well into a satchel, you know? Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm just going to keep moving here for a second. All right, so I'm going to come over here. So if you look here, I'm working on March. Here's March at my desk. So in March, I looked at this drawing and I did this here of a woman running down the beach. But if I turn to this page, I have nothing there. So what does that suggest to you, Alan? We didn't prepare it before everybody, but what does that suggest to you?
It suggests to me that it's only the 27th of the month and you're not finished yet.
Oh, okay, I know. But what does that suggest to you? Tell me some human experience. What is that about? What does that suggest to you?
Now you're going to make me say something I'll regret.
No.
Just a bit confusion at the moment.
Confusion. Okay, so it's something about confusion. A woman confused. All right. Or a man confused. Okay, a man confused. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to base stuff on these shapes. So here's a man. No, if it has long hair, it's become a woman now. Picasso said that if it has a beard, it's a man, you know? Yeah. So that's, you know, so, okay, so it's a woman who's confused, okay, upset and confused. I'm not saying it's good, but 1 in 10 we learned might be good and like Dylan would have said, he had no idea where Blowing in the Wind came from. Neil Young says he has no idea where Heart of Gold came from. You have to give yourself the chance to see if it's good. You're allowed to fail. It doesn't have to be great. Just get it going. Yeah. Don't think you have to make it perfect. That's an upset and confused woman. Thank you, Alan.
No, that's very good. I love your attitude. I think it's something that a lot of artists, I think, get stuck on.
Yeah, you can get stuck
on it. They'll either abandon it.
Yeah, the world expects stuff, you know? Yeah. And who made them your boss? An artist should treat it like a vocation. Mm. It's your expression. Who made them the ones telling you what to do? I don't like it. No, you do what you do and you create your strong, independent voice. And eventually you'll get a Heart of Gold or you'll get a Blowing in the Wind eventually. Hopefully, you know? Okay, so as part of this idea of reflective books, reflective practices, if you look here, I've done 450 pages of reflective journals with not doing all drawings. Those only 35 of those pages would have 70 each, making near 3,000, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look here, I started this in 1995, where I just put things in. And this is a good thing. If you need a place for things to go, you can get an A5 reflective journal thing, and you can write and you can glue and you can talk about the stories. There's the original CPR that was shown in the Rhode Island State House that's owned in a collection in America. I don't have it. And, you know, some archivist or historian in the future is going to see that I really liked Eric Fischl's work and that I was thinking about Thomas Bretzing and his work. And I was thinking about how artists come to a different country. As an American artist living in Ireland, I'm interested in this idea that a German person goes to America and makes a very important work of American art with flags and colonial using the sgraffito technique of Germany. A German artist goes to America and makes American folk art. So I'd argue that maybe, possibly by depicting Irish scenes, that maybe I'm not that far away from scratching into a plate with colonial flags, you know.
David, so, do you journal every day?
The reflective journals are probably 3 or 4 pages a month, You know,
All right.
But to get to 450 from 95, that's the best I can do. I'd like to put up on my website the whole reflective journal. So you could just read it if you wanted to.
That'd be very interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So one thing I want to show you is that in terms of my love of print media, and that, you know, what's going to happen 60 or 100 years from now, Amazon's going to drop something out of the sky on our doorsteps, and we're not going to need to have really beautiful things that say jokes and mischief, because it's going to be in its own, sort of in a brown box, need help or delete. Now, these could be upside down, but that's intentional. I create these obelisks to nothingness. They're not about war, or they're not about heroism. They're basically love letters to print media. So if you look here, I've created all of these obelisks out of found styrofoam. Like if I see a slab on the side of the road, I'm going to pull over and grab it. You know, I just love them.
Yes, yes.
And so they're actually quite compelling to me. I find them to be very poetical because there's no directionality. I'll turn it.
Yes.
So I love print media. I love scraps. All right. So we're going to go outside now. I'm going to go slower. All right. So follow me, Cormac.
No, we're getting up to 11, and I want to give a bit of time for questions, David.
Okay. So I do. Maybe we'll just walk into the workshop and come back in 1 second.
Yeah,
right.
Just do a quick run around. Yeah.
Very quick. Yeah.
Very quick.
So really quick. So
now, yeah, just be careful we don't lose signal now.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay. Would we lose signal?
No, not yet, but just be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. Will we lose signal? Would we lose signal? No. Yeah, I have 4G. Yeah, so I should be okay.
Should be right, yeah.
So here's my studio door. And if we go inside, this is another one of my Aladdin's caves, you know? Yeah. So I've done a very big text image, and I went back to painting. The weird thing is I would say that I love collage, but collage can lead to painting rather than painting leading to collage. They can all inform each other, you know? Yes. So this is an installation work that I call a mega styrolith. And I'm making a bunch of them right now. Here's one about the people on the beach. And there's one about the yawn and stretch. So I've been, and here's some of the, whatchamacallit, the slabs with Irish phrases. Here's what I use. I use an overhead projector. Some people think it's cheating. I say get over yourself. If you want to project something up big, just do it with an overhead projector. Or use a photocopier. That's a thumbnail sketch photocopy. So why not, if you want to make it bigger, use a photocopier and then trace through it. Don't get over the whole idea that it has to follow some process. That's the piece of plastic I used to make that big one there. So we'll go back to my studio now. There's the chairs, though. You can see that they're douchey. Right?
Oh, yes, they're lovely.
Yeah. All right. I like that.
You've made a few bits of furniture, a bed included?
Yeah, I made a bed, and I just recently have made this with an architect whose name is Greg Jackson, and we used hurls to make a bench. And Cormac, can you model that bench? Can you show us? Sit down there, Cormac. Everybody say hi to Cormac.
Hi, Cormac.
So there it is. Yeah. So it's a bench, you know, using a home-based slab of pine that was like €5. So we'll come back in, yeah?
Yeah.
So there's my studio door. All right, so we're going to go to questions and answers, all right?
Yes, let's do that.
Perfect. All right, so I'm coming back to my home spot. All right, here we go.
Yeah, you just settle back and reverse your camera.
Okay, Cormac, can you make sure I can do this? All right, here we go. Just make sure. Okay, I got it. Thanks, Cormac.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work backwards because it'll probably make more sense doing it that way, as odd as that might sound. Gina says, do love David's library of human activity. Very entertained.
Thank you, Gina.
Says, who is the German folk artist?
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, okay, all right, don't worry. Don't.
I'm not sure.
Margie Dunn says, amazing. Yvonne says, David certainly has strong independent voice in his words and works, Yvonne, yeah. Shane Hoey says, perfect is the enemy of good. Remember you were talking about that?
Thank you.
And Tim Goulding goes one further with that and says, long live failure, fail better, as Sam Beckett.
There's Beckett, yes. Thank you, Tim.
fail again, she also says. Annabelle, thank you so much, David, for sharing your process with us. It is really fascinating. And it is. I mean, you work hard.
Well, it's crepuscular. I just do it every day. And if I didn't do it every day, I wouldn't be an artist.
Yes, Yvonne says learned a new word today. And that's the one. Cuspy time. Tim says, love the fluid drawing over deep collage. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
My internet is getting a bit ropey. Tim Goulding says, love the fluid drawing over deep collage. Great garbage portrait, art brute.
Thank you.
Cuspy time. Okay. Love the ink over color collage pieces.
Thank you.
Love your work, David, says Katie. And love this guy, says Leslie.
Oh, thank you. I'm just going to grab something. I just saw something that Gary Robinson wrote. Can I respond to that, what Gary just wrote? He says it's the ordinary that matters. Please do. I mean, there's a wonderful poem by Patrick Kavanagh that when I did a course for the HDiPs, I was teaching at Trinity, and I got them to each do one stanza of this four, I created it like into 4 stanzas. But the 2 guys are arguing over land in Epic, in Patrick Kavanagh. And he says, to lose my faith in Ballyrushen until Homer's ghost came whispering to my mind. He said, I made the Iliad from such a local row. Gods make their own importance. I don't want to say that people like here who are waking up, I mean, here they are, they're waking up. We do that. Who's to say that that's not important? Of course it's important. Why wouldn't it be important? We do it every bleeding day. It's important.
Yeah, sure.
We wake up. Somebody wakes up before the other person. It just has to happen. So, okay, sorry. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, no. Gary, thanks for showing, for allowing us to see all of your process. It's the ordinary that matters, says Gary. That was superb. Many thanks. That's Ailish, I think. Epic. Leslie says, I feel inspired watching David's work and process in the confidence of his approach. Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Seamus says, what is Gibran quote, please, Owen?
It's a poem by Gibran that was kind of about vegetarianism. I don't know the title of the poem, but it goes something like, that which slays you, I too am slain. So it's very much an artist's motto that if it affects me, chances are it's going to affect the viewer.
Yes,
it's a beautiful line in the poem. I don't know the title. Gibran, Gibran. Gibran.
Emma says, David, you are a breath of fresh air. Thomas Brezing. Dennis says, filing system amazing. Oh, I've lost him now. It jumped. Hold on a second. Where have you gone? Filing system amazing. Attention to detail, indeed. Serena Campbell says, David has such a unique way of peeling the layers of the human psyche. What appears simple is very complex in nature. David seems to provide a forum for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Serena.
Mark says, Mark Johnson says, Dave's art is integral to how he lives. Darren says, great presentation, David, and to see your wonderful work and get to look under the hood. Angela says, thanks for the very interesting talk, a breath of fresh air. Richard Smith, to everyone, says, wait, is that me in bed with Allegra?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Very good.
That's my old college roommate. Yeah.
Yes. And
he's the one that took me to New York City. Thank you, Richard.
Yes, that's right. You were saying, yeah. Holly says, an hour is too short. I know. But, then you have other people who say they want to, they have so much to do during the day. So it's good timing. But anyway, we want more. That's a very good sign, David.
Thank you.
Anna Corrigan, hell of an artist, an artistic point of view. Yeah. And Oisin, loved the talk, Dave. So you have a lot of fans out there, old boy.
Oh, thank you. The one thing I wanted to say, though, is that if it's true that this is our life and this is what we do, this is our stuff, then why not just use that? I mean, if you want to be political and you want to do this and that and the other, do that. But if you just want to do your own thing, please, artists out there, do your thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Just make it real. Be open. Make it honest. Like Marilyn Monroe says, she was only happy when she did something honest on film. If that's the way your life is going to be, then you accomplish something.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. David, I have to ask you the question we ask everybody, which is if you were to own a piece of art from a museum or anywhere, private collection, you could bring it home and put it on your walls, what would it be?
Well, it's huge. It's body-sized. It's Anna Mendietta's Silhouetta that's owned by Agnes Gunn. So Agnes, don't anybody send this to Agnes, because I'm going to break into the Modern Museum and I'm going to take, or do I have enough money to buy it?
You don't need money.
Oh, I'll just take it. Okay. She might be mad though. I don't want to get my former boss mad.
Well, we'll deal with that when it comes to it.
Okay, folks. Yeah.
So that's the one. And we saw that image, didn't we? Earlier on.
We did. Yeah. That's the one that was sort of like laying down flat and with wood and sand.
Yeah.
So remember, folks, the art doesn't have to be about technique. It has to be about emotion. Yeah. That's what I'd say to you, and be open to that. Be open to your feelings, and your feelings are perfectly acceptable. Accept them and use that as your leaping off point. Yeah. That's what I'd say to you.
Okay. Couple more comments before we close it. Okay. Love the talk, Dave. I think we said that one. Celine Sheridan, wonderful talk, Dave. Leslie O'Hanlon says, David needs to get YouTubing. He is so engaging and energetic.
Oh, thank you.
So true.
I did just get a website, Leslie. It's called davidnewton.ie. And if anybody's intrigued by this idea or process or wants to come up some Sunday, you're welcome. The 27th person who comes to my studio is going to get this painting. Cormac, can you get me the painting down there? So I'm going to invite people to my studio.
And there's some interesting topography around your area too, isn't there? Some burial grounds and stuff.
Yeah, if you came up to visit me some Sunday after COVID, there'd be Four Knox Burial Tomb, which is amazing. I'll tell you how to get in. And then there's the sea. So if you come from wherever you are, you could have a nice afternoon. Come to me for an hour and we'll chat and we'll talk about art. Artists, collectors, dealers, you're all welcome. Artists, I like swapsies. Collectors, I like money. Dealers, I like shows. But this painting I'm going to keep track of who comes to my studio based on my website. I'm giving this to the 27th visitor that crosses my door. It's called 3 on a Bike. It's about Stamulling. So I'm giving this to whoever walks the 27th person off my website.
But be careful now, by appointment only and all that.
Oh yeah, you have to talk to me and we have to set it all up. And okay. I promise that my friends and Alan won't get it. Alan, Alan will get something else, but anyway.
No,
listen, so just to say, I really enjoyed this, Alan. Thank you.
Not at all, my pleasure.
Are we getting late? Is it too late, right?
Oh, it's mad late, but don't worry about it. I mean, that's what it's all about. And
I tried to get everything in. I think I needed 5 hours. Sorry, folks.
You probably would have, but I think what you got in was superb and well done. And as a lot of people have said, you're very, very refreshing. I love your angle. I love you've probably liberated an awful lot of people who are stuck in I must do it this way or I must do it that way. And I think
there is no right way. The right way is your feeling. That's the right way is what Alan Hacklin, who taught David Sally and Eric Fischel, he would have said. And sorry if I'm going to swear on YouTube, but it's what Alan Hacklin, the teacher of those two neo-expressionists, said. You have to, it's about your shit. It's about your stuff. So if it's your stuff, do it.
Yeah.
Have your own voice.
Yeah.
And forget you're not doing it for them. If you do what you love, somebody else will love it.
Yes.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. Shane says everyone's an artist.
That's right. That's Joseph Boyce. Yeah.
Have you heard of the man who's digging the earth? Do you know what? There's loads of comments here, and they're all wonderful. And thank you so much for them. I think we might go on too long if we deal with them all. But look, I appreciate everyone's interaction. It's been wonderful. Thank you, David, what can I say? I mean, you're an amazing guy.
Oh,
and you're great fun, and far from being a boring, introverted individual that you were alluding to earlier. You're anything but.
Well, I am generally miserable, like Marilyn Monroe. I am. But can I end with one thing, though? It's important to me that I say one thing. And I want this to go to everybody's heart, right? If you're a creative person, you have to remember that if your fuse has been lit by something, it will light somebody else's fuse. It will do that. And Emily Dickinson wrote the most beautiful thing, and I'll paraphrase it, because she just says that the imagination, or you could say art or whatever, poetry, music, whatever it is, the creative thing, that juice of human condition that you're trying to send out to the world to record this experience, whatever that is, imagination, art. She says, art, imagination, it lights the slow fuse of possibility. That's what you should do with your art or your music or your poetry. Just let it light your fuse and it will light somebody else's fuse.
Yes.
Please. That's what I want to give to you today.
I love it. Listen, well done and congratulations on doing a superb job.
Thank you, Alan. And I want to thank Cormac. Everybody say thank you to Cormac.
Thank you, Cormac. Yeah, we'll all say thank you, Cormac. And listen, if you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a like and do subscribe, okay? It does our street cred a lot of good and gives us bragging rights and all that sort of thing. So please do
Alan,
that.
why don't you tell them how they can get like a subscription to you, like how they could write to you, is that right? They write to you?
Well, if they
write to Alan at ACA, right?
Yeah, Alan at aka.ie is to get on the list.
Right, and then you've got 36 at the moment, right? Mm-hmm. So you have 36 all lined up for people to watch. They're very beautiful and relaxing to watch. And if you want something good to watch these.
Yeah,
Alan,
I know.
Great.
It's good.
You're great, Alan. So thank you.
And next week now we're going down to Kilkenny to another artist, and I'm not going to tell you her name, but all will be revealed on Wednesday on my social media. So again, thanks to everyone. Thanks to David. Thanks to all of you for watching and putting the time in and for contributing. And don't forget, next week we're going to feature another 4 works of art. And they could be a poem. You know, don't restrict yourself. Be like David. Don't restrict yourself. And send that in to me, and I'll pick 4, and we'll do it again next week. So thanks again, everybody. Keep well, enjoy yourselves, and take care of everyone around you. Look forward to seeing you next week. Bye bye now.